So, welcome everyone. This is Saturday, 11th of July. Welcome to the Masterclass on Emerging Literacies. Now, why the emerging literacies? That's the biggest question before I go forward. We are doing the emerging literacy session for three major reasons. We want teachers to have an in depth knowledge of financial literacy. Second, we want teachers to have knowledge about food literacy. And third, we want you to understand how digital literacy is as important as the first two. You're living in a you're living in a world, not leaving, sorry, you're living in a world which is connected. You are living in a world in which digital is almost your avatar, your alter ego, your friend, your companion, your duplicate twin. That's what is happening in the digital age. So you have to understand your duplicate twin. And that's why we set up this series of master classes. Masterclass happens every Saturday at 5:30. The workshops happen as per schedule, 10 of them on the ground. In addition to the 10 workshops, we are going to host maybe 10 in Dehradun, which are known as the Learning Forward Retreats. If you happen to come and attend one, great for you. And finally, in November, we will host what we call the My Good School Retreat, wherein we'll try and meet many, many more people. So I have with me a panelist. Kunal, can you please come online and we can just do a little wrap up from your last two sessions before I go on to the session of Yuval Noah Harari and talk about 21st century and literacies. Kunal, would you like to come in and put the camera on so that we can have a little conversation and you can update us? So thank you, Kunal, for joining us. So Kunal joins us from Dehradun. So Kunal, I thought I'll do a Q&A with you before we actually get into a mode of doing what we intend to do today. So Kunal, what does
Go.
this what does this mean to you, the literacy project? Very basic question. What does the literacy project mean to you?
I think the literacy project is surely the first project if we are, say, when we are reaching across India. When we started it from Baliya, we have reached till Jammu. We are going next for the Ranchi one. I think when we look back for the years, and I think we had a conversation on this earlier also, the biggest problem that we face in India as such is that people are surely talking about teachers' professional development, but no one is India is wanted to or trying to invest in teachers' personal and social development. So I think if I see my teachers also, uh, it's kind of a way to give back to them or to, like we always say, teachers travel with you your whole life. I think it's for all of us to give back to the teacher what they really want, and that's how it should be, that it helps them in their personal and social development rather than helping them in their if we say academic or training. Surely we do it through many ways and means, but I feel this is what the main structure of doing this thing is. Thank you for letting
Thank
me
you,
speak.
Kunal. That was a good brief from a young person who has hopefully grown up with teachers who had the compassion and care, who's had good mentorship. So if I look at a teacher for me is anyone who collaborates with my learning journey. That's a teacher. Teacher for me, I've often said, is Mother Nature because Mother Nature is the first collaborator in my learning journey. Teacher for me is my mother who gives me birth and whom I learn from without even talking. When you see a child in the first few weeks, first few months, and maybe first few years, the eyes of the mother and child That's where the communication happens. So when we look at the four C's, which we've all discussed, and we talk of critical thinking, we talk of creativity, we talk of collaboration, we talk of communication. So here's a child growing up. The child observes things and child thinks them. Critical thinking comes to the child by observing what's around him. The child has come into a world full of noise. It's come to a visually stimulating world. And the child thinks why things are that way. That is how the child starts the journey. And when child thinks why things are that way, obviously child collaborates with mother, with nature, and the teacher. So three teachers in your life: first, Mother Nature; second, your biological mother; and third, the mother who fosters your physical and mental well-being, which is your teacher. So please understand, all three of you, whether it's Mother Nature or the biological mother or the teacher, are three corners of a triangle. And that's how the child learns. The child is in the middle, and whichever way the child sees, the child finds a corner. And from every corner, there's learning for the child. So similarly, we thought this year we will design a new triangle for a teacher as a child in the middle. And our unique triangle this year is what we call emerging literacies. On one hand, we will update you on food literacy; second, financial literacy; and third, digital literacy. So today's session focuses with the backdrop of what we will learn from one of the greatest thinkers of the world alive in this century, Yuval Noah Harari. So we read a lot of books about Harari. We have shared a lot about him. So I think best for me to start is do a recap of last week's session. And after I do a recap of last week's session, we will start with today's session. So last week we introduced the Emerging Literacies program. So here is a little brief. So we hosted a webinar for the Literacy Project for educators on the 4th of July, the day we actually hit the ground running in Baliya. So in this introductory session, yes, we gave a brief of the literacies and we introduced the book. The book is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. The session commenced with a summary of the morning's financial and food literacy workshop held in Baliya as a part of the nationwide initiative by the Good Schools Alliance under the Learning Forward India Foundation. Dutt explained the Emerging Literacies program aims to prepare teachers for future challenges by emphasizing communication, creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. So these skills are the ones which will take you ahead. So today we have just got back from Jammu. So Kunal is there at Jammu. Kunal, in 1 minute, can you give a Jammu update? And then I will start reading the book.
I think Deep Khare sir is here and Amita ma'am is also there. We have allowed them to
Okay.
talk also, so if they want to chip in and give us
Why
their
don't you
dynamic.
update them to a panelist? If you can have them on the panel, that will be very nice.
Yeah,
Just upgrade them to a panelist. It'll be good to have them in the panel. And we can use the next 5-7 minutes because essentially this is the concluding session of Jammu, which we are hosting today. And it's the first session after we met all the teachers in Jammu. So
yeah,
I have
they're
with me
both.
Deep Khare sir. Sir, you are a panelist. I hope you have a video, sir. And we have Amita ji. Uh, we are. I can't tell you how delighted I am to be with you here. So over to you, Deep Khare sir. Sir, your basic introduction as to why your school decided to do this program and be, I would say, इंडिया का ताज. आप जब जम्मू में बैठते हैं और इंडिया का क्राउन जो है वो जम्मू कश्मीर कहलाता है हिस्टोरिकली. क्योंकि अगर हम इंडिया को इमेजिन खड़े 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 करें जैसे कि इंडिया खड़ा है, इट्स जस्ट मेटाफोरिकल इमेजिनेशन. सो हेड ऑफ इंडिया इज वेयर Deep Khare Saab is. So you are at the brain space. So, sir, why did you invest so deeply in the literacy project?
Sandeep and Kunal and everybody else, colleagues of Jodhamal and fellow educators. I am very sure that Jodhamal and all schools which are really contemporary in a way of thought process, modern schools, they long back know the value of, I'm repeating my word, the value of literacy of education of all kind, right? From numeracy to literacy in education, basic education, then financial and food. Food was a new concept which we developed in the last 2 years. And when it came from Sandeep sir and with Kunal and with people coming directly from SEBI and FASSI, I think we couldn't have done it in any better way. And of course, the planning was meticulous. The program went so well. And at the end of the program, and as a person, just silly, a small member of the whole audience, I feel proud of myself. I feel that there is no other way in which somebody can understand the meaning of the gist of being financially literate. We were busy making money or trying to save or do something, but it was an eye opener. And such a strong person who could tell us in the most simple manner was something everlasting. And I can assure you that the moment my colleagues have a chance to speak again with Mr. Surikant, they won't leave him for hours or days. Similarly, food literacy. And to be very frank, I've been now roughly touching 60 around. I haven't spent much time in going through the labels and looking for nutritional value of the things. For the first time, and such a young person, that young Aditi, I think her name, or Preeti was her name, she could make all of us understand that what it means to be a person who's alive. He's rather not busy, compromising on something which is so important for himself and the people around him. We as a school leader or the teachers have a bigger role to play. It's not only that I am making mistake by buying wrong things, but I was thinking that if I do not know myself, how will I do my duty of letting the world to become a better place? So children, they only know how to order on Zomato and pay by OTP. When will they be able to really read, which they are capable of? The labels and ingredient and everything, and so many more things which we could learn. It was something very satisfying, very comprehensive, and I think valued session we had. In fact, I felt personally it was too short of a time. We should have had more time with those people. So this is from the top of this country, Jammu, Jodhamal. Jodhamal is again a top school, I always feel and say. We have had a great beginning, and I'm sure you can see the number of people have joined already from my school, and our school rather, I'll say. And it is going to be a very important journey for all of us now onwards, financially also, and on a health side also. And I think on behalf of every colleague of mine, the families, I can never thank you enough, Ms. Sandeep, Ms. Surikant, Ms. Preeti, and Kunal. And I'm sorry if I cannot, if I have not mentioned Mr. Jugji. He was a very different person. I feel so elated that I could spend some time with him. I have rarely meet people who are that clear about things what they speak about. I'm very happy and proud of you, and thank you very much indeed.
It's an honor and privilege. I touch the feet of every teacher in this room. I wish I could physically do that. And with deep reverence, Deep Khare sir, like I said, I look up to Nandan and how you people have put together the entire program, the way you hosted it. जैसे कहते हैं ना, आपने दिल खोल के वेलकम किया. सो थैंक यू फॉर ओपनिंग योर हार्ट टू अस. और इसलिए हमने अपने एड्रेस का नाम रखा है diljito.com. So when we started this program, we actually bought a domain to celebrate what teachers do. Teachers do only one thing: they win hearts. That is the teacher's role. It's not literacy, it's not numeracy. Teacher's role is only one: winning hearts. And teacher is the most critical stakeholder in the learning journey. Yes, sir.
If you say dil jeetne ki baat, to the person who take my heart away is Kunal. I wish that everybody has a child like him in their families. As simple as that.
Thank you, sir. We are deeply honored. Kunal came into our program almost a decade back. So I am just trying to explain to all the schools what we can do with schools. So this is a little experiment which we are doing. And I'm glad you've been able to highlight one, I would say, one rising star with us. So like Kunal, our journey at My Good School, which I think today we will focus for a few minutes on why we are doing this and how we are doing this. So essentially what happened in the year 2012, I met William Bissell. So William Bissell is currently chairman and managing director of Fab India. So he came to India in 1989, and like a young Kunal, he decided कि मुझे भी कुछ करके दिखाना है. So he ended up setting up a little school in a village in Rajasthan called Bali. I can't tell you a longer story because this story is very long. I can actually do a whole session on the story on how the school works because I spent full decade working with the school with only one thing. How do you build a culture of trust and learning? So after 2 decades of setting up the greenest school in India, I'm saying it loudly, that school needs no certificate because that school has a 10 plus acre of raw forest. They made the forest first and then they made the very simple structures which we call the classrooms. And the classrooms are all of material from the local area, built by the local area. The school is carbon plus. If you want to understand what carbon is, check up what ESG is, check up what carbon neutral means, check up what carbon credit, some references for you. So the school gave us a chance as how to build a culture of trust and learning. So 2013, I had no way to start anything. I just went there as a layman, accepted William's invitation, took a bag of books, started reading out there as I always do. Even today, I was on a flight. In fact, by the way, sir, I had to travel for some unforeseen reasons. And even from the airport, I ended up buying books, which I'm going to read in the next 1 week. So that's me. So I just opened my bag of books and sat down in the village. And when some teachers after my 2 3 visits got curious, ये हर बार किताबों का थैला लेके आ जाता है, करने क्या आता है यहाँ पे? So that was the journey. So if you see today what is happening, it is the same step. हम आपके पास आए, ये करने क्यों आ गए यहाँ पे, किस लिए आ गए? So that curiosity, the creativity, the communication, that's how it started. And after a few visits, some teachers borrowed some books from me. And to make the long story short, in the year 2017, 16, 17 teachers became great readers. And finally, in 2019, when we had CBSE affiliation for 10 years, we became a school with zero failures. So it's not only the zero failure story, the children started getting over 90 in English. And why did that happen? Because as teachers were reading, children started reading. And Konal is one example from that. So that is the story of how we built up this whole exercise of taking your learning forward. So finally in 2020, we decided we will do everything in open source. हमको जब आखिर में अपनी आंखें बंद करनी है, टीचर के पांव पे सोना है. मैंने आपको 3 टीचर का एग्जाम्पल दिया था. पृथ्वी में तो सो गए आंखें बंद करके, अपनी माँ के पैरों में भी सो गए आंखें बंद करके, और जो आपकी फॉस्टर मदर है, जो टीचर है, मैं फॉस्टर मदर यूज करता हूं बिकॉज there are very few like Khare sir and us who are on the wrong side of the gender, but this profession is run by the better gender, the more powerful gender, and we respect the Devi in every teacher. So when you ultimately sleep, where do you sleep? You sleep in the arms of the Devi. You wake up in the arms of the Devi, and that is the teacher. So with this reverence, in 2020, we set up the Learning Forward India Foundation. So very interesting thing happened. The foundation was set up in 20 January, which was after a return from Finland. I was invited to Finland at the Helsinki Education Week to share this story on how we built a culture of trust and learning in a school. And when I came back, that's when we set up the foundation, and we wanted to do this on a larger scale. So 2020, we didn't know what to do. We got 4 5 schools and we just started reading to them. That time I could visit the schools, but then came COVID. And COVID was so beautifully timed. Sorry, I'm taking the better advantage of the times. It was so beautifully timed. I got all of 380 teachers. So I had 380 teachers with me through COVID. And that's where this learning journey got intensified. This whole idea about literacy, digital literacy, programming, blogs, making videos, making podcasts, writing regularly, reflecting regularly. That's how our COVID journey was celebrated. And finally came COVID. Towards the end, schools said, don't put this off. So then the voice came from schools that don't put this off. And that's how we became what we were, the Learning Forward Foundation. From 5 schools in the year October 21, we have today almost touched 100 schools in this journey of 3.5, 4 years. And what happens is every year we get new schools to be a part of our 25 batch. So we only sign 25, roughly 25 schools every year. because we feel like in a class, 20, 25, 30 children can maximum get attention from one teacher. Similarly, in one session, how can we host millions and millions or hundreds or thousands or even a few hundred? So we want to keep it to that. But the interesting part is our focus is twofold. We feel हम जिंदगी में पहले आते हैं देने के लिए और फिर आते हैं लेने के लिए. और देने का मतलब होता है गिविंग, लेने का मतलब होता है लर्निंग. लेने का ये मतलब नहीं होता कि आप मेरे से कुछ फिजिकली लेंगे. हमारा मतलब लेने का है लर्निंग. So joy of giving and joy of learning make our life. And we thought every school, every teacher, every student must understand these two joys, the pure joy of giving and the pure joy of learning. Now, on that moment, I think I want to invite and have a little conversation with Amita ma'am. Amita ma'am, are you here? Okay. So when we have this journey of giving, when we have this journey of learning,
Yeah,
we
she
have
is
to
here.
have. Good evening, ma'am. Let me
Good
continue.
evening. Good
Ma'am.
evening, sir. Good evening. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, ma'am. We would
Yes,
love to
sir.
see you there. It'll be very
Yes,
nice
sir.
if you, if.
When I try to change my settings, sir, then I get disconnected. I think there is some problem with Zoom because the basic settings, I think, am I visible now? Yes.
Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely
Yes.
visible.
All right.
So,
All right.
ma'am, I'm talking of joy of giving,
Yes,
and
sir.
I'm talking of joy of learning. So, and Deep Khare sir, our director sir, brought us to this point of how we celebrated maybe these two joys in Jammu. So, do you think we celebrated the joy of giving and joy of learning in Jammu? That's my question to you.
And that's for sure, sir, because the hangover of the workshop is still there. We are from last 3 days, rather, we are talking about the workshop only. How the both food and financial literacies they have impacted our minds, and the way it was conducted, the meticulous planning, behind the scene work and humility of Kunal, it has really touched our hearts. So definitely we are going to implement whatever we have learned in the workshop, and the positive atmosphere that the workshop has created, I think it would have lasting impact on all of us. And on top of it, sir, the best gift that we have received, sir. So this we are going to make sure that at least in English department we are going to discuss in the classroom, and we'll send one copy to the library also. Thank you so much for this wonderful gesture, sir. And there is a lot to say, a lot to learn, and a lot to implement in the classrooms, because at Jodhamal, our learning, our teaching is it's not limited just to the textbooks. We prepare children for life, and we learn more from you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being the smiling teacher that you are. God bless you. And I'm sure as we go along, your smile will power us to greater learning and joy, because that's the gift the teacher has. I have
This
not
smile is,
seen.
sir, because of you. Otherwise, I don't wear this smile throughout the day,
No,
sir.
no,
It's because
no.
of your presence.
Believe me, whenever I think of teacher, I always think of a smiling teacher. I've never found a sorrowful teacher. That's
Yes.
the value of a teacher in our lives. So, with due respect to every teacher here, let's read a little bit of Yuval Noah Harari now, and we will close sharp at 6:30. So the process is very simple. We will meet like this every Saturday. And next Saturday, we will try and invite our guests. So, like Khare Saab said, that the time was too short. Actually, time should be shorter. We should only do 45 minutes of financial literacy workshop. And we should bring these people online every week, because that's where a greater amount of interaction can happen. And when you are better connected, you can ask questions. We would be more than happy to have you raise your questions in the WhatsApp forum. There is a WhatsApp forum or a group, as we call it, for this particular session. Some of you are there on WhatsApp, and I think it's a great thing if you can all join. You can actually give us questions. We'll bring in our experts, and the conversation can go on at your comfort. It is difficult to have a conversation in a webinar. It's very easy to have a conversation and a convocation also when you are in a group and you are able to express yourself. So please do that, and we look forward to receiving your reflections. We look forward to hearing from you. You can send your thoughts to us by email. You can send us a voice note. You can send us a graphic image. We will share the, Kunal will post Manisha Khanna's email ID and Manisha Khanna's phone number. Whatever you learned from the last session, please send her an email. Share your reflections. Because do remember, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity only happen when you start sharing. And we cannot prepare you for the next century or for the next class or for the next literacy if you don't share things with us. That is the beauty. And just a while back, when I shared my screen, I shared the blog. The blog is happyteacher.in. There is a happy teacher inside you, and that's what we want to find. Now, on that note, I will read a little today. We have good half hour. So we will move on to the chapter. This chapter is chapter 1 of Yuval Noah Harari. So we are now looking at the technological change. So humankind is losing faith in the liberal story that dominated global politics in recent decades. Exactly when a merger of biotech and infotech confronts us with the biggest challenges humankind has ever encountered. So today, the world is at crossroads. Biotech and infotech are converging, and they are working in such a way that humankind will be affected the way it has not done for civilizations to come. Let us see how that will happen. Is it the end of history has been postponed? Humans think in stories rather than in facts, numbers, or equations. And the simpler the story, the better. I will pause here. You will remember your Panchtantras, you'll remember your fables, you'll remember the small stories when you started your journey in this world as primary years. And I find that the primary years teachers are perhaps with us all our lives. And I really admire the primary years teachers because they are the most hardworking, if you ask me. Not that I don't respect the ones who are senior and who have domain knowledge, but if you see the storytelling which the primary years teachers do, it makes the foundation of our lives. Every person, group, and nation has its own tales and myths. But during the 20th century, the global elites in New York, London, Berlin, and Moscow formulated three grand stories that claimed to explain the whole past and to predict the future of the entire world: the fascist story, the communist story, and the liberal story. So look back the last 100 years. You had the fascists, one group, you had the communists, and you had the liberals. And these stories were created to tell you that we are the best story in the world, we are the best method in the world, we are the only way you can learn and grow. So if you have a liberal story, obviously you think you are better. You have a communist story, you think you are even better organized. And all these models are living and alive in the world even today. The fascist story explained history as a struggle among different nations and envisioned a world dominated by one human group that violently subdues all others. The communist story explained history as a struggle among different classes and envisioned a world in which all groups are united by a centralized social system that ensures equality even at the price of freedom. The liberal story explained history as a struggle between liberty and tyranny and envisioned a world in which all humans cooperate freely and peacefully with minimal central control, even at the price of some inequality. So you are seeing today these models living around us, and we have to understand, we have to prepare our children or young students for a world where these models will all change maybe in a very short span of years ahead. And that's why we are here talking of emerging literacy, talking of changing world order, and helping teachers think way beyond just the four walls of the classroom. The conflict among these three stories reached the first critical peak in the Second World War, which knocked out the fascist story. From the late 1940s to the late 1980s, the world became a battleground between two remaining stories, communism and liberalism. So, this is a small history lesson which we are all doing, because the backdrop for look reaching where we want to reach in the 21 stories, this is the first story from history. So, look back. I'm sure you all were there, most of you at least, if not most, large number in the last century, and you saw how the fascism fell and the world became divided between communism and liberalism. Then the communist story also collapsed. So, with the breakup of Russia, so many of the communists, Russia was socialist, not communist, sorry, but it had a tinge of equality among all classes. It actually was anti capitalism. So, if you see communism, it believes like a welfare state. So, welfare states are so often interpreted when you get comfort from a state in terms of monetary value, in terms of physical value. And communist states say that's the state's duty to ensure everyone's well being. That happens or not is yet to be established. Then the communist story collapsed, and the liberal story was left dominant guide to the human past and the indispensable manual for the future of the world, or so it seemed to the global elite. The liberal story celebrates the value and power of liberty. It says that for thousands of years, humankind lived under oppressive regimes which allowed people few political rights, economic opportunities, or personal liberties, and which heavily restricted the movements of individuals, ideas, and goods. But people fought for their freedom, and step by step, liberty gained ground. Democratic regimes took the place of brutal dictatorships. Free enterprise overcame economic restrictions. People learned to think for themselves and follow their hearts. I'll pause at this comma. We are talking of think deeply. And this is what you go back in 21 when Rabindranath Tagore wrote his famous poem where knowledge is free and world is not bound by walls. So if you look at that, what Rabindranath Tagore said, we're 100 years from that now in the present. And you look at what we are saying here. I'm going to pause the previous page and start this sentence again. People learn to think for themselves and follow their hearts instead of blindly obeying bigoted priests and hidebound traditions. Open roads, stout bridges, and bustling airports replaced walls, moats, and barbed wire fences. This is what happened in the world. The liberal story acknowledges that not all is well in the world and that there are still many hurdles to overcome. Much of our planet is dominated by tyrants, and even in the most liberal countries, many citizens suffer from poverty, violence, and oppression. But at least we know that we need to do in order to overcome these problems, give people more liberty. We need to protect human rights, to grant everybody the vote, to establish free markets, and to let individuals, ideas, and goods move throughout the world as easily as possible. According to this liberal panacea, panacea is a solution, panacea is a cure. According to this liberal panacea, accepted in slight variations by George W. Bush and Barack Obama alike, if we just continue to liberalize and globalize our political and economic systems, we will produce peace and prosperity for all. Countries that join this unstoppable march of progress will be rewarded with peace and prosperity sooner. Countries that try to resist the inevitable will suffer the consequences until they too see the light, open their borders, and liberalize their societies, their politics, and their markets. It may take time, but eventually even North Korea, Iraq, El Salvador will look like Denmark and Iowa. This book is written almost 7, 8 years back. But what is happening in the world, you will see reflections of that in the book. That is what a beautiful author, I call it teacher or author, by the way. Most teachers create stories. You create authors. An author is only created in your classroom. Remember that. A thinker is only created in your classroom. So one fine day, Yuval Noah Harari must have been in a classroom where a teacher like you must have encouraged him to think. And that thinking has made him write this book. And look at the way he writes things, and the book remains relevant even today by the day. In the 1990s and 2000s, this story became a global mantra. Many governments from Brazil to India adopted liberal recipes in an attempt to join the inexorable march of history. Those failing to do so seemed like fossils from a bygone era. In 1997, US President Bill Clinton confidently rebuked the Chinese government that its refusal to liberalize Chinese politics puts it on the wrong side of history. However, since the global financial crisis of 2008, people all over the world have become increasingly disillusioned with the liberal story. Walls and firewalls are back in vogue. Resistance to immigration and trade agreements is mounting. Ostensibly, democratic governments undermine the independence of the judicial system, restrict the freedom of press, and portray any opposition as treason. I will read this and I will not say anything more. Listen to this. Resistance to immigration and to trade agreements is mounting. Ostensibly, democratic governments undermine the independence of the judicial system, restrict the freedom of the press, and portray any opposition as treason. Strongmen in countries such as Turkey and Russia experiment with new types of illiberal democracies and downright dictatorship. Today, few would confidently declare that the Chinese Communist Party is on the wrong side of history. In 2016, marked by the Brexit vote in Britain and the rise of Donald Trump in the United States, signifies the movement when this tidal wave of disillusionment reached the core liberal states of Western Europe and North America. Whereas a few years ago, Americans and Europeans were still trying to liberalize Iraq and Libya at the point of the gun. Many people in Kentucky and Yorkshire have now come to see the liberal vision as either undesirable or unattainable. Keep in mind, if you are aware of what's happening in the world, and see how you read this book along with us. It's very fascinating read. I promise you this book is most fascinating and it'll open your mind to a lot of things. We would love to have your questions. We would love to have you write to us, and we will give you more knowledge as we go along. Some discovered a liking for the old hierarchical world, and they just don't want to give up their racial, national, or gendered privileges. Others have concluded, rightly or wrongly, that liberalization and globalization are a huge racket, empowering a tiny elite at the expense of the masses. In 1939, humans were offered 3 global stories to choose from. In 1969, just 2. And in 1999, a single story seemed to prevail. In 2019, we were down to 0. No story is perfect. No wonder that the liberal elites are to manage the world. I think I missed a page. Yeah. No matter the liberal elites who dominated much of the world in recent decades have entered a state of shock and disorientation. To have one story is most reassuring situation for all. Everything is perfectly clear. To be suddenly left without any story is terrifying. Nothing makes any sense. This is where the world is. Pause. Think. From killing mosquitoes to killing thoughts. The mood of disorientation and impending doom is exacerbated by the accelerating pace of technological disruption. So now we are trying to see what's happening in the world. The liberal political system has been shaped during the industrial. Sorry about this. Let me just go back. The liberal political system has been shaped during the industrial era to manage a world of steam engines, oil refineries, and television sets. It finds it difficult to deal with the ongoing revolutions in information technology and biotechnology. Both politicians and voters are barely able to comprehend the new technologies, let alone regulate their explosive potential. So just remove the word technologies with literacy. Just change the word. And I will read this sentence. Politicians and voters are barely able to comprehend the new literacies, let alone regulate their explosive potential. Since the 1990s, the internet has changed the world probably more than any other factor. Yet the internet revolution has directed by engineers more than political parties. Did you ever vote about the internet? The democratic system is still struggling to understand what hit it and is hardly equipped to deal with the next shocks, such as the rise of AI and the blockchain revolution. So, here we are talking of what's happening in the world. We are talking of digital literacy. Already today, computers have made the financial system so complicated that few humans can understand it. As AI improves, we might soon reach a point where no human can make sense of finance anymore. What will that do to the political process? Can you imagine a government that waits humbly for an algorithm to approve its budget or its new tax reform? Meanwhile, peer to peer blockchain networks and cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin might completely revamp the entire monetary system. So, when you explore this week, try and find out what is a blockchain, what is a Bitcoin, what are cryptocurrencies. So, try and discover these words. Google when you have free time, read about them. This is what Kunal said in the beginning of this session, that this particular session will help our teachers to liberally think and explore knowledge and learning way beyond they would do in a normal rush of the world. We will meet you once a week, and like we met you physically in Jammu and Baliya, where we talked about interesting things in finance, we talked about interesting things which are relevant to you in food. Here we'll talk about digital literacy. Here we'll talk about AI. Here we'll talk about new things that will shape the way you have to work with young people for the near future. I can't even say very far. So here we go. Completely revamp the monetary system so that the radical tax reforms will be inevitable. For example, it might become impossible or irrelevant to tax dollars because most transactions will only involve only the exchange of information without a clear-cut transfer of national currency or any currency at all. So when I talk of currency, I first talk of physical currency. And today, you don't even exchange any currency, remember that. Governments might therefore need to invent entirely new taxes, perhaps an information tax paid on the information and in information rather than in dollars. So dollar is already stressed today as a world which as a transaction currency for the world. So here we are talking of information as currency, where you tell me something, I tell you something. Now let me go back a few thousand years. हमने सब कहानी से सीखा था. हमने सब अपने पूर्वजों से सुन के सीखा था, उनसे बातचीत करके सीखा था. वो हमें कुछ बताते थे, हम उनको कुछ बताते थे, और ऐसे दुनिया बनी. So we are coming almost to full circle where money which held us for the last 100, 200 years may become irrelevant in the near future, where countries will exchange things. For example, today also, most trade deals are done. I can give you this, you can give me this. We exchange, by the way, if you see how we work with Russia, we don't transact in dollar. There are systems where we balance each other's trade deficit at a country level. So आप एक नेबरहुड में रहते हैं, आप एक दिन एक बोल में थोड़ी सी कड़ी बना के अपने साथ वाले नेबर को भेज देते हैं, वो अगले दिन अपने घर में मिठाई बनाता है, उस बोल में डाल के आपको वापस भेज जाता है. So I'm giving you a very simple example of how the world was, how the world is, and how the world has always been. Will the potential system manage to deal with the crisis before it runs out of money? Interesting. Do think about it. Even more importantly, the twin revolutions in infotech and biotech could restructure not just economies and societies, but our very bodies and minds. In the past, we humans have learned to control the world outside us, but we had very little control of the world inside us. We knew how to build a dam and stop a river from flowing, but we did not know how to stop the body from aging. We knew how to design an irrigation system, but we had no idea how to design a brain. I mentioned last Saturday, you can replay the recording from YouTube of the last session. YouTube channel is My Good School. And I mentioned how we have been able to actually create a human cell, and we are ready now to create a human body. This is a very recent research which has happened, and they have been able to create a living cell synthetically. If mosquitoes buzzed in our ears and disturbed our sleep, we knew how to kill the mosquito. But if a thought buzzed in our mind and kept us awake at night, most of us did not know how to kill the thought. A very powerful sentence. We knew how to kill the mosquitoes, but if a thought buzzed in our mind and kept us awake at night, most of us did not know how to kill the thought. The revolution in biotech and infotech will give us control of the world inside us, and it will enable us to engineer and manufacture life. We will learn how to design brains, extend lives, and kill thoughts as our discretion. Nobody knows what the consequences will be. Humans were always far better at inventing tools than using them wisely. It is easier to manipulate a river by building a dam across it than it is to predict all the complex consequences this will have for the wider ecological system. Similarly, it will be easier to redirect the flow of our minds than to divine that it will do to our personal psychology or to our social systems. In the past, we have gained the power to manipulate the world around us and to reshape the entire planet. But because we didn't understand the complexity of the global ecology, the changes we have made inadvertently disrupted the entire ecological system. And now we face an ecological collapse. In the coming century, biotech and infotech will give us the power to manipulate the world inside us and reshape ourselves. But because we don't understand the complexity of our own minds, the changes will make might upset our mental system to such an extent that it too might break down. The revolution in biotech and infotech are made by engineers, entrepreneurs, and scientists who are hardly aware of the political implications of their decisions and who certainly don't represent anyone. Can parliaments and parties take matters into their own hands? At present, it does not seem so. This is a very interesting time in the world when you are there and you are actually watching all this. You are watching what is happening in the world and you are there to answer these kind of questions. So at present, it doesn't seem so. Technological disruption is not even a leading item in the political agenda. So this is not even being talked in parliament in any country in the world what technology is doing. Thus, during the 2016 US presidential race, the main reference to disruptive technology concerned Hillary Clinton's email debacle. Some of her emails were leaked. And despite all the talk about job losses, neither candidate addressed the potential impact of automation. Put this in your country's perspective and think. Donald Trump warned voters that the Mexicans and Chinese will take their jobs and that they should therefore build a wall on the Mexican border. He never warned voters that the logarithms will take their jobs nor did he suggest building a firewall on the border with California. This might be one of the reasons, though not the only one, why even voters in the heartland of the liberal West are losing faith in the liberal story and the democratic process. Ordinary people may not understand artificial intelligence and biotechnology, but they can sense that the future is passing them by, sorry. In 1938, the condition of the common person in USSR, Germany, or the USA may have been grim, but he was constantly told that he was the most important thing in the world and that he was the future, provided, of course, that he was an ordinary person rather than a Jew or an African. He looked at the propaganda posters, which typically depicted coal miners, steel workers, and housewives in heroic poses, and saw himself there. I am in that poster. I am the hero of the future. In 218, the common person feels increasingly irrelevant. Lots of mysterious words are bandied around excitedly in TED Talks, government think tanks, and high tech conferences. Globalization,
Am I
blockchain.
audible?
Yes, very much. Globalization, blockchain,
Hello.
genetic engineering. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, you were saying something, sir?
No, ma'am, we are reading. Can you hear the
Okay.
reading?
Yeah. I think something.
Yeah. No, sorry. So, sorry about the little interruption. That was Manisha Khanna. Manisha Khanna works with us and is part of our team. She is from the Good Schools Alliance and she manages the Sunday school. She volunteers for the Teachers Academy. You heard her voice because Manisha wanted to let you know she is waiting to hear from you. Do send her reflections. Kunal will share her email address and phone number soon. So, whatever you think of this session, whatever comes to your mind, write about it and send to us. And that's where I go back to where I started. We are talking about creativity. We are talking about communication. We are talking about collaboration. So this will only happen when you start thinking and writing. And don't send us notes, send us your thoughts. Tell us how you feel after this session and what you are trying to get from us in this book, which we have put in front of you, which we are slowly flipping across for you. So we are here. You hear a lot about globalization, blockchain, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And common people may well suspect that none of these words are about them. So you're very much being thought of in the book we are reading. The liberal story has the story of ordinary people. How can it remain relevant to a world of cyborgs and network algorithms? In the 20th century, the masses revolted against exploitation and sought to transfer their vital role in the economy into political power. So you can look around, it's happening. Now the masses fear irrelevance and they are frantic to use their remaining political power before it's too late. Brexit and the rise of Trump might thus demonstrate an opposite trajectory to that of traditional socialist revolutions. The Russian, Chinese, Cuban revolutions are made by people who are vital for their economy, but who lack political power. In 2016, Trump and Brexit were supported by many people who still enjoyed political power, but who were feared and they were losing their economic worth. Perhaps in the 21st century, populist revolts will be staged not against an economic elite and exploits people, but against an economic elite that does not need them anymore. This may well be a losing battle. It is much harder to struggle against irrelevance than against exploitation. I will pause here and put a bookmark. We only want to do so much of a read today, and let's have a look at the content. So, today, when we started, we are on the table of contents of the book. We are on part one, and we are trying to understand why there is so much disillusionment in the world. So, you may consider this book as geopolitics, you may consider this book as contemporary knowledge, This work will help you. This work, this book, this research of Yuval Harari in 21 lessons will explain to you how work is changing, how liberty is changing, how equality is changing, what the civilizations are going to learn and what the civilizations have way ahead. We talk about nationalism, we talk about religion, we talk about immigration, we talk about terrorism, we talk about war, we talk about humility, we talk about God, we talk about secularism, we talk about ignorance, we talk about justice, we talk what will happen post truth when everything will seem mithya to you. We talk about science fiction. Yes, we talk about education. We talk about the meaning of what we're all doing. And finally, we talk of spirituality. So, moving from the intersection of biotechnology and infotechnology to a spirituality, to a human who is spiritually stronger. So, for me, a teacher is a very strong spiritual person. And that's what we want you to help you find. We want you to help you find your spirituality. So, that's the session for today. I will create a bookmark for this particular read here, and I will add it to the WhatsApp chat with the page number. I will stop sharing here and come back into the session. And next time we will read a little ahead. Now, before we go from here, I go back to my panel and first reflection from Dr. Deep Khare. Sir, what do you think of the little bit of reading we have done today? Sir, kindly unmute.
I think this session brought me little higher than my normal point of view. Being a school person and member of the family, we are busy looking down in a smaller well of our own. And when we heard this read of yours, it really brought back the responsibility we all carry, that it's not a small area or the place you belong to international boundaries and human race altogether.
Yes,
At times we are so busy in doing smaller things that we forget the purpose of all those small things we do. And I take 1 minute to tell you that what you started with triangle, and I think say differently the same thing, that, and I very strongly speak this, and multiple time I already spoke it, that for me, schools are not the places of learning. Schools are the places to let children know from where to learn. We somehow, the school education or college education for that matter, has passed a message that everything is learned in school. I have never been of this opinion for the last 35, 40 years. The schools are only the place to let child know from where to learn. So child learns round the clock. He doesn't learn in the school. He just confirms his learning at the most, or guided to better learn from better places or better resources or sources. So and I felt very happy when you brought down the three different environment, mother, and the mentor, foster mother. You said, I'm not able to see it now. I will be able to see it. Yes.
So I've just finished this book. It's called Educated, sir.
Yeah,
it's a memoir of Tara Westover. I mentioned this somewhere in our conversation. So what you're mentioning, here is someone who was homeschooled till the age of 10. Then she runs away and joins the main schooling system. And then she comes back to understand that when she ran away from the system, but all she learned was only in the system of homeschooling. She has got a PhD now. She's a doctor, Tara Westover. It's a memoir, by the way, this book. So she goes to explain that what she learned with nature, which is your first mother. She lived in the Idaho in USA. So in the Idaho area on the mountains. So she was brought up like a young mountain lass on a farm, and his father had a junkyard. So it's a very fascinating story on where education is. And she's saying, what do we call educated? And you are saying something brilliant what you just said, because this is what education is about. And unfortunately, the schools have today become structured to really make us submissive, to go to a class, answer 10 questions, give 10 answers, get 10 marks. That's not education. So it's very fascinating as we go along. And let me just put a real carte blanche disclaimer. I'm not here to sell books, but I know that reading is the deepest form of thinking. And we are only here to help you think deeply. हम हफ्ते में एक बार मिलेंगे और इसको आप पड़ाव समझिए, इसको आप एक तरीके से मेडिटेशन सेशन समझिए, इसको आप जैसे सर ने का एक ऐसा सेशन समझिए, ये अपलिफ्टमेंट वाला सेशन है. इस सेशन में हम बहुत हिंदी में बात नहीं करते, परंतु अगर आप 3:30 बजे वाले सेशन में आओगे उसमें हम हिंदी में भी बहुत बात करते हैं. ये हमारा जो सेशन होता है सैटरडे को 5:30 वाला, ये थोड़ा हायर ऑर्डर थिंकिंग के लिए है. इट्स थिंक डीपली, दैट इज द फोकस ऑफ द लिटरेसी प्रोजेक्ट. बट इफ यू कम एट 3:30, देयर वी आर कन्वर्सिंग विद you in Hindi and English comfortably. So sometimes you may find my books tough, but that's what the challenge is. Only when you take on challenging things will you be able to move ahead. And I'm going back to where I went to Fab India School in 2010. My bag had books. Today also my bag has books. By the way, just to update you, my family is in books for the last 102 years. So we can't be wrong. So for 102 years, we have read books and we have lived in books and we have Kunal is there. He's sitting in a room. If he can show you around with the camera, that is my little room where I sit, and you will see that there are over 1,000 books in that room. This is not the bookstore, by the way. The studio where I meet you from next week. This is our Joy of Learning studio, and some of us will have a chance to come to Dehradun and actually see how we have built all this. And that's where my book title says, My Good School, Where Passion Meets Education. Thank you for joining us. And I want my dear Amita ma'am again. Ma'am, I want your smile back on the screen if you can give me just 10 seconds. You showed the book, My Good School, and the subtitle of the book was Where Passion Meets Education.
Yes, sir.
And I hope you can feel the passion, because that was the idea of this session. My apologies that I couldn't make it. And despite the fact I was not supposed to travel, but God willed it. I lost someone very dear in my family day before. So I ended up traveling. So on the 9th, when you were hosting a session in Jammu, I was struggling to reach somewhere to be solace to my sister, who lost a little son of 35 years. So that's a personal story. So look at this now. I have today done the last rites in the morning, but I'm here as a teacher. That's the story of a teacher. And a teacher will always smile. And I again say that ये हंसते जख्म जिंदगी जो बनाते हैं, ये हंसते जख्म वो जिंदगी की तहजीब है जो हमारे पास है. That is a gift we teachers have. So respect that gift and always be happy, teachers. Ma'am, last word to you, because you are one of my very dear panelists and hosts of the Jammu session. And this is the concluding leg of the Jammu session, where we have closed the Jammu session. We have introduced you what we are doing ahead, and hopefully we will meet you very soon in other locations. Yes, ma'am, over to you.
Sure, sir. Sir, first of all, thank you so much for the honor of making me panelist and making me your one of the dear panelists. So thank you so much for that. And I have not gone through the book, yes, but I have I have read the titles, and that is Why Go to School, Quality in Education, How Your Child Learns the Best. So this is like, I think I'll finish this book overnight, and I would be able to relate to what you are saying right now. That 21st century skills we need to impart in our children, and not just focus on examination, finishing the syllabus, academics, but also along with that, the values that our children should learn, that is very, very important. And empathy, compassion, problem solving, decision making, all this is required in 21st century. And with by collaborating with Good School Alliance, I'm sure that our teachers will learn more and more such values and would be able to give to the learners. So
On
that
that
is what.
note, Jai Hind, Jai Jammu, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, or Jai Teacher.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
So Kunal, anything you want to add? I've missed out. You are the best person who sees me 24/7. Have I missed out any messaging in the today's session?
If any teacher want to share something from we can make them talk for a minute or two, then we can close.
Yeah, I
Any
think you
teacher?
stretched them too far. It's Saturday evening is not fair. We are 8 minutes beyond the class. So I think we should let them go. They'll be happier
Okay.
than tell them to share anything. So I know you're a tough taskmaster. You're worse than I am. So thank you for
Yes, sir.
asking for that.
We have seen him.
So on that note, Amita, that's the story of a teacher. Teacher is like जैसे सोनार होता है या जैसे डायमंड मर्चेंट होता है जो तराशता रहता है हीरे को, वो होता है टीचर. और ये जो आपने किताब मेंशन की, इसको शुरू करना एक चैप्टर से, जो मैं आपको सजेस्ट करूंगा. टीचर्स ट्रैवल विद यू ऑल योर लाइफ. दैट्स अ चैप्टर इन द बुक. आई लव स्टार्टिंग दिस बुक फ्रॉम दैट चैप्टर. एंड बाय द वे, बिफोर यू गो, every chapter of the book is available as a podcast on our YouTube channel. And before you run away, I will just show you the YouTube channel where you will find all these resources, these beautiful resources we are telling you about. So this YouTube channel is called My Good School. So if you go to YouTube, it's a very high performing channel today. You will even find chapters of this book. And where will you find them? You'll find them in the podcast section. The chapters of the book have been read. There are over 280 chapter reads here of various books in podcast form. So historically, we started with podcasts and graduated to videos about 2 years back. We have 686 recordings. We have 14,100 subscribers. And some of our very popular videos, if you see, you can find them like this. Come here, look at the popular ones. So 2 videos are really trending. One is a beautiful video. स्कूल सिर्फ स्कूल नहीं होते. इसको प्लीज आप प्ले करना. ये पॉडकास्ट है. और ये थिंक डीपली वाला तो आप लोगों ने देखा होगा, सुना होगा. थिंक डीपली, check out the channel. And yes, if you want to share, the best place to share is happyteacher.in, where you will see the future of learning happening. The future of learning is taking place here. And out here, you will find the place where you can send your reflections to. Send all your reflections to this address. I will add this address. I will copy it. I will go to my WhatsApp. I will go to the WhatsApp group. If you're not there, you can ask for it. This WhatsApp group is Saturday 5:30 p.m. And in that WhatsApp group, you'll see a DP of Sandeep Dutt Masterclass, which makes it easier. There were too many DPs in our WhatsApp group, so we have gone back to our traditional Saturday session. It's known as the Masterclass. So enjoy the Masterclass. And yes, see you next Saturday. But we will not be 11 minutes ahead like we are today. Next Saturday, we'll be well within time. Thank you again. Your feedback is welcome. Post it in the WhatsApp chat. Thank you, Director Sir. Thank you, Principal Ma'am. Thank you, Manisha, for dropping in. Thank you, Kunal, for what you're doing. And bless everybody. I have a prayer. God, bless everybody and help me to be good. That's the prayer. Nothing more than that. So take it with you and enjoy it. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.